Okay, I'm over here. This is one of my old drain pans, oil drain pans. What I'm going to do is clean it out, and I'm going to use this pan to drain the oil in the International. As you can see, I got the International back in the shop again, and I'm going to use this pan to drain the oil out of the transmission, but I want to make sure that it's clean before I do it, so I can strain it out and find out what is in the bottom of the pan or what is in the oil. Yeah, what comes out of the oil and what is in the bottom of the pan. Hey guys, welcome to another shop update. The reason why I'm doing this is because in the last video that I had posted, last shop update video that I had posted, I had pulled the fill plug off of the International transmission and found a chunk of metal on the fill plug, which was kind of strange to me why a chunk of metal would be up on the fill plug, but it gave me concern about what was in the rest of the oil or in the bottom of that transmission. So that's kind of why I'm doing this. So just bear with me. I'm going to go through removing the oil out of the transmission, showing it to you, showing you what was in it, and then we'll get into some other projects too. But anyways, I just wanted to show you, this is like the second day after I posted that last video. I've already got the gear oil for the transmission in the International, and I also got the cover plate and gasket for to take that PTO off with. So what I'm going to do, clean that oil pan out, get underneath there, pull the drain plug out. Now, I'm not going to be able to get that oil out of the PTO before I pull it off, but let me first get the oil out of the transmission through the original drain plug, and then we'll take a look at it, see what's going on with it, and then I just want to double check and make sure that this cover plate is going to fit over the hole in the bottom of the transmission where the PTO went, and I'll take that PTO off and put that new cover plate on. Yeah, that's as clean as it's been since it's new. I'll just wipe it out, dry it off, wipe it out. It's good enough for what I'm doing. By the way, this stuff is being shot with the old camera and the gimbal. I've got some parts that I needed for my new camera. I've also got to set the camera up, get into settings, and figure out how to set it up in a landscape mode. So a couple of people commented about the picture, the size of the picture needed to be taken into landscape mode so that it could be viewed better when you're like on an iPhone or something. Now there is this stuff that's off of the plug. I just took a screw head, I wiped it off and then took a screw head and kind of spread it out a little bit. As you can see, it's just, it's that really fine powdery metal stuff. It almost acts like graphite if you spread it out. It's just real fine stuff, no chunks at all. So what I'm going to do is start pulling the PTO off, but I'll bring you back. Hopefully you can see that. That looks like pretty clean oil to me. Doesn't appear to be any chunks on the drain plug either. But where the issue actually could be is that any chunks or anything like that could be done in the PTO. So I'm not going to show you draining this whole thing out. I'll bring it back. I poured some of the oil out in a drain pan from the transmission. And even though it doesn't appear very clear in the size of a jar. When it came out, it was translucent. I mean, again, it's only a stream coming out of the drain plug, but it was fairly translucent. There is no smell to it. Now here is the bottom of the drain pan. I drained it out into my thing, and as you can see, there are some chunks in there of, but nothing very big. But I really didn't expect to see much of anything in here, because if there was something, it's probably going to go into the PTO, because that's kind of the lowest spot. So anyways, I mean, there isn't much there, and they're fairly small. There's no big chunks for sure. I mean, that's kind of the biggest piece right there. Time will tell. We'll see what happens when I pull that PTO off. Okay, it's the following morning, and I just wanted to kind of show you the pan after it's sat overnight. Again, there isn't really a lot of big chunks in it. I mean, there is some small stuff in there, as you can see, but basically it's not. Again, what I'm going to do is pull that PTO out, and if there is any big things or a multitude of shavings in there, that's where it's going to be, because it's that's the lowest spot in the transmission. So my transmission jack, if you've watched my videos on the G56 changing that, I had to redo the wheels on the transmission jack, and actually I like those wheels better. There's only one issue on the front wheel, and I'll show you a little detailed shot of that later. On the front wheel, when it swivels, it rubs into the frame of the jack stand, or the jack. So anyways, I'll show you that in detail later. But what I do have is I have the casters that Napa warranted on the jack stand. If you recall, again, it was in the G56 video. One of the casters broke on that, so they didn't have them in stock in Napa, so I just went to Tractor Supply, picked up 4 new casters that had a weight rating of what the jack needed to be at, and put them on there. Now, the casters that I picked up at Tractor Supply I like better because they, two things, they're bigger in diameter and they roll better over my bad floors. But anyways, I'll show it to you in detail in a minute where the issue is. So what I'm going to do is take those casters off and put these casters back on. You know, I like them better, but how often I don't use the transmission jack that often that I would do it. So what I'll do is I'll just take those casters, and what I want to do is make a little roll cart that you can take under a truck with you like this, that you know, it's just got a flat deck on it, and I'm probably going to put some of the magnetic trays on top of it just to set tools on, tools and parts that you're taking off onto that little roll cart, because it seems like you're always trying to roll over your tools and the parts that you've taken off of the truck when you're on the creeper underneath it. So it would be nice to have a little cart to go underneath the trucks when it's not up on the lift. I told you I'd show you this. See, what happens is the wheel pivots into that. Now, if you pivot it the other way, it's fine, but when it swings back the other way, it hits that, and it keeps it from moving, and it's can be very annoying when you're trying to take a transmission out or put it back in, because you can't get that movement, that little movement that you might need to position the transmission correctly. But I'm gonna change them. You know, it's not that it's that big of a deal, but it's always something that kind of delays you. And there it is with the casters, the replacement casters back on it again. So it kind of moves all over the place now because those front wheels aren't hitting as with those old wheels. I shouldn't call them the old wheels. The wheels that I bought from Tractor Supply were hitting the front. So the correct wheels are back on it now. You get total movement. The only problem is the cracks in my floor kind of hangs up on that, but we'll deal with it. So here is the PTO and the hydraulic pump that's attached to the PTO drive out of the truck. I've got to get under there. I'm going to put that cover plate on it. Now, what I did is, again, I'm going to drain the oil out of this. I've got to tip it over on its side, drain the oil out into an oil pan, and see if there's anything down in there. As far as metal shavings, metal parts of gears, anything like that down in there, because, again, that's the lowest point, was the lowest point on the transmission. So if there was stuff, it would probably go in there. I'm going to drain the oil out, like I said, and then show you. But before I go and do that, I'm going to put this back on, put the new cover plate back on, and refill the transmission with gear oil that I got for it, synthetic gear oil that I got for it. Again, I checked up in the transmission. I kind of looked at all the gears and everything up in there. I didn't see anything that would draw my attention to something being an issue. And I felt along the housing outside of that cover plate around in there and felt nothing in there. So I'm comfortable with just putting the cover plate back on and then buttoning it up and putting oil back in. Okay, just to show you guys, I got 2 of the 3 things in for the new camera before I can use it. I had this like tripod handheld thing. What I got in is this case that goes over it, and I got this mic adapter. Now I don't have the mic yet, so this thing plugs into the camera. The mic plugs into that. But anyways, what the issue was is the audio on the GoPro isn't, the microphones on the GoPro aren't that great. Well, they're probably good, but it's very low. Extremely low. I have to go through and correct all of the audio from this camera because the microphones are so low. But anyways, I'm getting a Rode mic that goes onto it, adapts to that shoe on the top of it. And as soon as I get that, I'll start using this camera. I'm not going to say I won't use the camera. I mean, I can adjust the audio on it if I do shoot some clips with it, but that's the situation with that. I think I'm supposed to get that mic like on Tuesday or something. But anyways, I'll bring you back. Okay, so I'm back over here again. It's the following day. And what happened was last night or yesterday afternoon, I put the cover plate back on. Got the correct bolts for it. I'll just discuss that later. What happened was there were studs in it, but and the studs wouldn't work to adapt to the cover plate, and I'll explain that in a little while. But I got the correct bolts for it. Put the cover plate back on. Got about a gallon of oil back into the transmission, and the cover plate started leaking. Now, when I bought that cover plate, I got a gasket with it. I paid extra to get a gasket because I'm kind of old school gasket type of guy, and I don't. It's not that I don't like that form of gasket or Permatex gasket sealer. It's that people overuse the thing, and sometimes it's all over the place. It's hard to get apart sometimes because they use the stuff that hardens, and it's just a pain in the ass. And they had a gasket with a cover plate, and I got the gasket with the cover plate, figuring, yeah, we're good to go. Good surfaces. I had cleaned the surfaces up before I put it together. I have no idea why it's leaking. It leaked. What I did is pulled out a pan, put the pan under it so that it was catching the leak. Then positioned the pan so that I could pull the drain plug and drain that oil out, and just left it under there overnight. Now what I've got to do is get into it. Got to get in there, pull the pan out, recover that oil, and put it back into the container that I'm putting it in with, and pull that cover plate off and figure out what the hell is going on with that. But anyways, I'll bring you back. Okay, so I've got the Rode mic on now. I got it. This is the same day that I shot that previous clip where I said that I probably wouldn't get it until Monday or Tuesday, but I got it, and it's on the camera. Okay, I've got you over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some things that these are the studs that came out of the for the PTO, where the PTO was attached to the bottom of the transmission. Now, I talked about it, that I had put that fill pan, had put that cover plate back on, and it leaked. The reason why it leaked is because the shortest bolts that I had, and these bolts are 7/16 that go into the bottom of the transmission. And I told you before, I think I told you before, the studs that I took out of there is a standard 7/16 coarse thread, coarse thread. It goes to a metric. So what I had 7/16 bolts. Now I buy these bolts. I have a bunch of bolts, and I buy them in bulk. And this is the shortest 7/16. It's an inch thread. Well, what the issue turned out to be, I had put that pan back on, and it tightened up, and I thought it had tightened up. It drew the pan up, but what it is the original bolt thread length on that stud is like 5/8 of an inch. These bolts are 1 inch long. I put that cover plate back on using a washer, and I thought it tightened up, but it didn't tighten up. What in fact it did is bottomed out into the bottom of the bolt hole, and it really didn't tighten seal that gasket on there properly. So it was close. It was real close, but it didn't seal it properly. What I ended up doing, since I didn't have a source for shorter bolts and didn't want to cut 8 bolts off of that length, I just put another washer on, and that took up the space in it. So I made a bunch of videos about this, but at the same time I was making them videos, I was testing this camera out. Now, this is a new camera, and I've got that mic on it, But what it is that mic is directional. It points forward, and when I point it forward and talk, when I'm behind the camera showing you something, it doesn't pick the sound up. It's as bad as the original microphones on the GoPro 7 as far as picking up or having a low volume on it. So I'm reshooting this video with this clips, and I've got actually what I'm ended up doing is have to turn the microphone backwards so that I can talk into it facing or from the back. So that's the issue with the camera and the issue with the bolts. I'm going to show you one other thing. I'm going to show you a clip of me putting the fluid back into the transmission, and this is what I use to put the fluid back in with. It's called a Nastro, and it's a large capacity gearbox or oil filling system. I happen to get this from Mac Tools. You can probably pick it up someplace else and not have to pay truck prices for it, but great system. It's got a pump on it, hand pump. You just fill it up and you can pump it. You'll see that in the video is when I'm filling the transmission back up again. But anyways, I just kind of thought I'd show you this and explain to you about the camera. The camera hasn't been resolved yet. I still have this issue where it is in landscape mode, wide mode, but for some reason when I download it, it shrinks it down, and I'm not sure if it's a problem with the computer or the program or the app that I use to download the things into, or if it's an issue with the camera. So that's still got to be worked out. I'd like to be able to find a microphone that's multi-directional so that I don't have to turn this damn thing around every time that I want to use it, but we'll work all of these things out. There was approximately 3 gallons in there. I don't think it's full. I've got a pan underneath it fill port in case it overflows. One of the other things that I'm doing is I'm going to build a Dunnage rack to go under the International. Now this is going to hold the wood and Dunnage that you set stuff on top of on the bed of the truck. So the 4x4s and stuff like that will go in here. I'm going to make it 2 feet wide. It's going to be a little more than 2 feet because I actually cut these things 26 inches wide because of the amount of space that sticks out in the truck. I got a tape measure on the back. If I go over to the frame rail, I've got about 30 inches from the frame rail to the outside of the tire. Now that's conservative because that's the outside of the tread, not the outside of the tire. I made these things about 26 inches wide. So it's going to probably, because they're laying in the center of the 2 long angle irons, it's probably going to be about 26 and a half, 27 inches wide. But that'll allow me to bend down and just grab it, not have to actually get under the truck to yeah. Let me do that again. I'll be able to get down and grab it, not have to get under the truck to get to it. But anyways, I'll bring you back along with that build too. When I come in the morning, I'm going to have to tear that, check the tensions on the wire feed and check this thing out. Okay, I got you over here to the dunnage rack for the truck, and what I did is welded up the bottom frame, as you kind of saw from the clips from yesterday. I welded up the frame, and then I came in here today and I had some other things to do. I wanted to get my truck cleaned up both inside and outside, so I did that this morning, and then I just came over here and started working on it a little bit. And why I say a little bit is I put this back piece on. Let's say this is the back, and this piece I think is 10 inches long. Maybe it's 9. Maybe I cut it. I don't remember now. It's either 9 or 10 inches long. What originally I was going to do is have a higher one in the back, like 10 inches, and then maybe 6 inches in the front, and kind of taper it down a little bit, just so that it would be easier to get the dunnage out from inside of the rack with a shorter front end on it. But then again, I want to keep the front as tall as possible so that the dunnage doesn't fall out of it. So what I am planning on doing, originally what I was going to do is build these things up and put expanded metal in it all the way around it. Probably not in the back, because the back is going to be uptight against the frame rail, so there wouldn't be a need for expanded metal on the back. All there would be a need for is a bolting surface on the back. So what I would have probably done, put the angle iron in the corners, this corner, that corner, and then probably a piece of flat stock in the middle, and use that to the 3 points to bolt onto the frame. But what I'm gonna do, I'm probably still gonna do that. But what I'm gonna do now, I think I'm gonna make these things all the same height, 10 inches. And what I'm gonna do is, in the front, maybe just put a couple of pieces 10 inches up, like that. And then what I will do is put some bar stock around the top of it, running over here and then down along through, with expanded metal in the bottom of it. Now I'll probably put a stiffener, or maybe even 3 stiffeners into the bottom of it. In other words, a piece of just flat stock metal across it to keep the expanded metal from deforming or getting pushed down from the dunnage weight on it bouncing as the truck drives along. The bar stock that's going to go along the top is just to help keep it rigid, help keep the stuff from coming out in the middle. So there would be like a angle here, and then in the middle there would be a flat bar coming up, with bar stock going across, and that way I can actually reach in and maybe lift stuff up to help get it out, or if I've got shorter pieces of dunnage in there, maybe pull them out through those openings. probably on the end, the openings will be in the front. Probably on the end, I will have a piece of flat stock both in the front and the back of this thing. So in case I stop fast, there is no potential for it to shift out, or as I'm going along it vibrating and coming out the back, just so that it creates some extra security on the front and back of it. But anyways, so that's kind of my idea right now. Again, it's getting kind of late in the day. My idea could change overnight, so you never know. I'll bring you back though. Okay, I'm brought you outside and I'm just showing you the truck because for two reasons. I told you that I cleaned it up today. I just wanted to show it to you. I went through the inside, cleaned out the inside too. It was kind of filthy. I really hadn't been keeping it up as far as being cleaned because of the transmission and everything else that was going on with it. But anyways, that's not the only reason I brought you out here. What I did is took this microphone and turned it around so that it's backwards, because most of the time I'm shooting stuff, I'm showing it to you, and I'm behind the camera and talking. But let me try this approach to it and see what happens. But anyways, there's a truck. I'm just giving you a little shot of some of the things that I have done already this morning. Again, like I had discussed in the previous clip from yesterday, what I'm going to do is put these, let's call them angle posts, in the corners, and I'm going to run rod stock along the front of it. The side of it is going to be expanded metal, as is the bottom. Now there's going to be a support going through the center of this, and another just a piece of flat stock angle, the same thickness as that, coming up in the center, that will be bolted to the frame. So the two backside supports, one on each end, and the middle will be bolted to the frame. There will be a cross member in here, and there's going to be a support underneath it to give a little more rigidity to that inside, not inside, middle post that comes up that bolts to the frame, just so that there is more rigidity. Out here you have the angle iron coming out, so it'll be bolted, 2 bolts, probably 1/2 inch through there. Same with that other end, and this angle iron coming out here provides the rigidity to hold it, support it upright. I want that same thing in the middle, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this cross piece going through here, and on the bottom of it there's probably going to be a piece of inverted angle iron, or maybe bar stock, whatever I have around, that will provide rigidity back to that piece of flat stock that is going to be bolted to the frame. But anyways, there's that. I'll bring you back when I've got more accomplished. Okay, change of plans again. What I've done, I flipped it upside down. What I've kind of decided is, instead of putting expanded metal out here, I'm just going to take that rod and put a couple of pieces of rod through there, maybe like 2 pieces in the center and then a piece across the top. Rod down the front, just I'm thinking right now a single rod, but I might double it up. I might have a rod on top and a rod down through the center. What I did is flipped it over, and in the center section I put this piece of angle iron upside down and welded it in, and extended that middle back support that's going to go against the frame. I extended that down so that I could weld this upside down angle iron on it. One of the things that most people don't realize is, on a trailer or on a truck, how much strain is under it by load weighting and road bumps vibration, it will destroy things in no time. I have all sorts of issues with my dunnage rack on my trailer not really being strong enough and wood coming out of it. But being strong enough, this thing is going to be cantilevered out 2 feet. I kind of wanted to get a sturdy support in the center, so that when I bolt it up to the frame, I can be assured that it is going to be strong enough cantilevered out from the frame to hold the dunnage. Now, there's not going to be that much weight of dunnage in it. Probably this rack is probably 4 times the amount of weight that's going to be in dunnage, but regardless of that point, I want it strong, I want it stiff, and I want to not have to worry in the back of my mind, is that thing going to fall apart or collapse, or the wood going to come off while I'm driving down the road. So better to be safe than sorry. I just kind of cut this back at an angle like that so it wouldn't be as evident. That support is transferred up through there, but instead of having a straight V right there flat with this thing, I kind of figured that I would angle it back like that just for aesthetics. I might actually take a piece of flat stock and weld that opening up, but I'm not really sure of that yet. I just thought I'd bring you over here. I flipped that thing back over again, and that's what that looks like. That V-notch thing looks like. Now, when I say I might fill that thing in, I'm not sure. Yeah, what my thought is if I left it open, it might whistle as it goes down the road or get a noise, but that's not the reason why I brought you over here. Having issues with my welder. I went to my welding supply store. I have a welding supply store pretty close to my shop, within probably 4 miles of my shop. It's where I buy all my welding supplies. It's a branch of a big welding supplier in Buffalo. But I went over and I talked to him. That's where I bought this welder. I went over and talked to him, and he says, yeah, what your symptoms are, and I'll explain to you what the symptoms are. I want you to bring the welder in. I'm going to send it downtown and have them do a load test on it. What happens with the welder is it was working absolutely fine, and it's not the settings. Let's go there right away. It's not the settings. What would happen is, and you probably might be able to see it, somebody might be able to see it in some of the welds. What happens is I'll strike an arc on the thing and it'll weld fine for about an inch, and then it loses power, and it's not the duty cycle. I'm not even sure if there's a duty cycle on this welder. It's not the duty cycle, and I'm pretty sure it's not the input voltage, because what I did is went over and felt the conduit after I had welded for a while, and the conduit with the wire supplying the outlet for the welder is not warm. As a matter of fact, it's cold. It's kind of cold. I got the door open a little bit, but it's kind of cold out today. Not cold, but 50. So it's not the power supply. It's not the duty cycle. I think that's what they call it, a duty cycle. There's a duty cycle on some smaller welders where, like, if you weld for 10 minutes, it kind of shuts off because it's overheating itself. It's not that. It's like loses power. And when I went in there and explained that to this guy, he kind of knew exactly what I was talking about. So I think that might be a prevalent problem with these new style welders. But anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that bar on there. I can weld. They're not good looking welds. The only thing that I've got to do is just put those bars on. I've got one plate that I've got to weld up here, and I'm going to put those bars on, and then I'm going to shut that welder down and take it over and have them send it out and have it load tested or checked for it. Again, I'm not sure. You know, I'm not a friggin' welder. I was a sprinkler fitter. We couldn't weld. Well, we could, yeah, let's put it, we couldn't weld. And there's a reason for that with sprinkler systems. But anyways, again, I'm not a welder, so I'm not really sure what's wrong with it. But I'll take it over there, let them check it and see what's going on.